Hey everyone, this is Aaron Schwartz, one of the founders of Orita. We build AI segmentation for a bunch of brands. We are not talking about Orita today. We're talking to Peter Deering, founder of Peak Design, who I first met a dozen years ago on a panel for Kickstarter, where people were asking us both questions because I had run a 50K Kickstarter. And after about 10 minutes, I said, I'm stopping because Peter at that point had done, I don't know, millions of dollars on Kickstarter and was like the godfather of it. And happened to bump into him a couple months ago, and it was very delightful for me because such a great operator, and I suckered him into joining. So Peter, thank you for joining me today.
Happy to be a sucker anytime, man. Good to see you, Aaron.
You too, man. I want to start with giving you the microphone to share a little bit about yourself, your background, and like, how did Peak really get going?
Yeah. Okay. Right on. Well, let's see here. Peak got going when I was, it's hard to pinpoint the precise origin, but I think we'll call it here. I came out to school from Wisconsin to California and fell in love with California. And I was working as
Mm.
a construction engineer. The job was hard. It was long. And I think that there was a trip that I took 2 years in, a leave of absence. I traveled the world and I thought, wow, it is nice to not have a boss. It is so nice to set your own schedule. And I think I became kind of consumed with the idea of being an entrepreneur at that point in time. It'd be 2 years though before that desire to just be my own boss manifested. And I kind of got quite lucky because I was pursuing really nutty ideas like floating solar panels and a regenerative brake mechanism for electrified trains, things that just frankly wouldn't have worked. But then I was fortunate to run into this problem that I'd had before while on my travels, which is cameras are a pain in the ass to carry, and the neck strap sucks. It's banging against your stomach, especially when you're moving along. And so I had this idea that I had kind of come up with on the road to carry a camera on a backpack strap. That ended up being the idea that I pursued when I quit that construction job. I just dove in head first, had like I think about $20,000 in savings from my first 4 years, and I incorporated. And I said I'm going to make a company out of this. And 15 months later, I launched a Kickstarter, and hell, I guess the rest is history, huh?
Were you on the sidelines for the 15 months building, or was it like you had your job in your building and if the Kickstarter went well, or is it like, hey, I'm burning the boats, this is going to be a business?
I burned the boats and
I like
I
it.
did run out of money, and I started working restaurant jobs to make ends meet just about 30 hours a week during kind of September to December or October to December of 2010. I also found out that I was going to become a father quite unexpectedly during that period of time. So the stakes really ramped up in a very quick way. Call it
Yeah.
October 2nd, 2010. That was not
Wow.
the day my daughter was born, by the way. That was the day I found out that there's a bun in the oven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, congrats. That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's funny, the timelines very much match. I started my brand truly on a lark. I didn't have the passion to start the brand. I had a passion to start a business and try it out. I think in April of 2010, and then really launched for real in July, August. And then
Yep.
kind of went down that path. For me, Kickstarter, I think we did it in late 2013, maybe early 2014. You were on the train from the beginning. Did you know that that was going to be a strategy? Like what got you into that approach from the start?
It's such incredible dumb luck. My go to market strategy, not a term was aware of, by the way, was I was going to go and door to door and sell this thing in camera stores. And I did this road trip in December, December of 2010, and I had a prototype and I took it on a little road show. And I was planning on that being my go to market strategy. And
Mm.
certainly form a website, but I knew nothing about marketing, nothing about like it just there was no plan. And in
Mm.
January of that year, a couple of friends told me, like, kind of within the space of the same week, about Kickstarter. And,
Mm.
just the marriage of timing could not have been more
Mm.
perfect. I mean, it was so damn lucky. And
Yeah.
so I probably among the strokes of luck that it takes to really have a successful business, because there's tons of smart people out there who are ambitious and willing to work hard. In my case, and I'm not alone here, like that was my great stroke of luck. The emergence of
Yes.
Kickstarter right at the time when I was doing this product that would be perfect for Kickstarter.
Mm.
Yeah.
My sense is it like, look, the money was important, obviously, but my sense is also there's some level of community or feedback or something that is why you're still continuing to go down that path. Is that a good assumption, or kind of what else did it unlock besides just having the money to run the business?
It absolutely unlocked a community element, a direct voice to customers back and forth. We have a point in our mission that's treat your customer as peers, and
Mhm.
that certainly emanated from the Kickstarter. You know, the kind of the really really direct interaction that I felt. I mean, there was 5,268 backers, and every single one of them who wrote into the company, I was the respondent on. I was on the comment board just religiously answering in great detail, cutting quick videos that look absolutely insane if you look back at them now to explain features or why I did certain things. And the community of Kickstarter was at that time and remains a place where really passionate people about being first movers on things tend to show up, and they will become incredible ambassadors for your brand. And, you know, like, I kind of don't know what these people did previously to kind of scratch that itch of they want to be in on the ground floor. I guess it's like fan clubs. Like if you go back to the days before, it really, it does strike me as like a fan club. You know, we've got all
Mhm.
these incredible tools now for this sort of one-on-one collaboration, or communication. But at the time, that was just and still to this day, really is a number one for us.
I'm sure you talk to a lot of like early stage brand founders or aspiring people who are like, hey, I've got a product, I've got an idea, I want to do it. Do you actually recommend going down that path, or is like the world changed enough and how people are consuming changed enough where it's like, hey, look, the objective is still to build community, build ambassadors, use your word, but there are different paths. Like, how do you think about navigating today versus again 15 years ago?
I think that I really am when I advise people one way or the other, there's a lot more knowledge and understanding about kind of product market fit and what is going to
Sure.
succeed there and what isn't. We've got a better
Yeah.
sense of what that is now. Like Kickstarter is it's a geeky audience. And so if your product is going to appeal to a geeky demographic, it's a great place to get started. We've learned a lot more in later years about other ways of doing e-commerce. And I mean, I think there are so many different platforms. I mean, like Peak Design doesn't even at this moment have a TikTok shop, but like I would
Mhm.
think that something like that might even, depending on what your idea is, rival rival Kickstarter as a go-to-market
Sure.
strategy. I can't say that factually, but I
Yeah.
think that there just are a lot of different ways now of approaching it.
Mm. One of the things when you were kind of giving the backstory and you listed out two different ideas, right? And one was like solar panels, one was regenerative biking, I think you mentioned. It's very clear that like being a good environmental steward, thinking about sustainability is obviously core to you. I know it obviously is core to Peak. I'm a customer. I'm also friends with your head of environmental impact and sustainability. How was this like from day one? Was this just a passion of yours? And like I want to go beyond just
Mm,
like the story and talk about how do brands do this well? How do you think about it? Like how do you be a good steward as a brand owner?
let's go back to my college days for a second and my senior capstone course. I was a construction engineer, civil engineer, and it was really the first time I learned in depth about green building. And kind of
Mm,
what would emerge into the lead being a lead accredited professional. So the concepts of sustainability, this is 2005, like became
mhm,
a central focus for me. I read all kinds of books about it. Became obsessed with the potential of ethanol. There's a book I read called Sustainability Without the Hot Air. It took every kind of known renewable technology and put it in these units of replacement for the fossil fuel infrastructure that we had. And I just gobbled all that shit up. So I had a pretty intense focus in energy and
mhm,
specifically renewable energy, but energy in general and its fungibility. I've always thought this is an incredible thing that, you know, arrives via the sun on this planet and gets transformed into all these different formats, which we can then intelligently harvest. I really wanted my career to be there. That's why you see regenerative brake mechanism for trains, not bikes, floating solar, you know,
yeah.
like I was I was constantly thinking about geothermal, like, let's just find the right volcano that we can just drill into on the side and get that magma pipe going and have unlimited. Now Fervo's doing that. It's kind of funny. All of these ideas that I had are
Mhm.
now being commercialized in one format or another. So it's kind of cool to see that. But it's also, I'm glad I didn't pursue those things because, 16 years later, they're basically just barely reaching some version of commercialization. I
Mhm.
admire it deeply. But now I got waylaid into this other passion, which was photography and kind of mechanical invention. And then, what I would wake up realize one day is like, I'm running a consumer brand. I'm a retailer. Holy shit, what do I do with that? That is not I thought I was an engineer, an inventor,
Mhm.
and an environmental, but no, I'm a retailer. That's crazy. But suffice it to say, I actually did not think of a way to fuse having this retail brand and environmental initiatives. And that was
Mhm.
that friend of yours, Annie Nyborg, who brought that into the company. She joined us
Mhm.
in 2014. She'd grown up in Ojai, California, so like in the shadow of Patagonia and all that they were doing there as far as the business was concerned. And this was just completely not on my radar. You know,
Mhm.
I knew vaguely what Patagonia was. I didn't own any of their stuff, but when she began explaining these values, it did not take a lot of convincing for me. And I will
Mhm.
also say that, you know, our foray into it was to just right away join 1% for the planet because
Mhm.
that was the org that Patagonia focused on, right? Chenard co-founded that with his fly fishing buddy up in Montana. And it just seemed like a very no bullshit, like, okay, clearly if you're giving 1% of your revenue, you're doing, like that's a good amount of giving. Um, yeah, that was kind of the initial impetus, but then we started thinking, well, I started thinking really deeply about where is this going, right? Because the point of 1% is you give your money to nonprofits and that are environmentally focused, and they go out there and complete their mission. By that time, I had become pretty convinced that the problem we need to be dealing with here is climate change, especially as it pertained to peak design, because I've always been a firm believer that we extract, not directly, of course, but we extract raw materials from the earth and we combine them with energy to turn them into finished products. We ship them all over the world, more energy. They get used. We don't have a lot of electronics, especially at that time, so not a lot of energy used during that time, but eventually they get thrown away. But at no part of that journey did I think that peak design is participatory in anything that is really damning to the environment, save for our energy usage and where that energy comes from. And of course, I've learned a lot more about the ways that each of our factories utilize water and also the social implications. And that's why you'll see Peak Design today has a wide-ranging sustainability strategy. But that focus on climate change and my desire to like put my nickels into the anti-climate change machine it was kind of hard to find. So that led to the formation of Climate Neutral a few years after we kind of joined our environmental movement.
Can you share a little bit about climate neutral and how like others can get involved if they want to? Is it only for brands? Is it yeah. If you could just share more, that'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, the first thing to share is that it's no longer called Climate Neutral.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
We
sorry,
re
once you said that, I was like,
Yeah.
I think you rebranded.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We've rebranded. We started we for a lot of reasons that I don't really need to get into because they're complex. We rebranded it the Climate Label. That's the thing
Yeah.
that brands can and in my opinion should be in pursuit of.
Mhm.
And the Climate Label is the most comprehensive certification label that a brand can apply
Cool.
for that is specific to their efforts vis-a-vis climate change. It requires that brands measure their carbon footprint. We've got excellent tools that we've developed and a framework for other tools and kind of the permission set around what can be utilized there. So brands have to measure their carbon footprint, understand where it's coming from. They have to come up with credible reduction strategies for every year. But then crucially, they have to multiply that carbon footprint by a price of carbon that the Change Climate Project sets. And they have to show that they are spending at least that amount on mitigation efforts. And there's a whole really thoughtful framework about how that spending can happen, where it can happen, so that you can actually be assured that these dollars are going towards things that move the needle on climate.
That's awesome,
Yeah.
man. It's super inspiring. It's also funny to hear, your point about, look, it took 16 years and like some of these businesses are finally able to like get off the ground. My first startup before my watch brand was a sustainability business, and we had so many ideas and so little execution. But it was like the only
Yeah.
thing I thought about day in, day out for 18 months. And then it's cool to see actually what's happening. So anyway,
It I know
I love that.
it is cool, man. And obviously all things my wife's a climate focused VC, and this whole world has taken its lumps, especially in the
Yeah.
last, call it, 2 years. I don't know what happened
Yeah.
exactly, but, for one reason or another, it's really, it's gotten its ass kicked. But at least from outward appearances. But I tell you what, man, the work continues. It really, really does. And it does that because, 1, most people have not forgotten that climate change is an incredible threat. And 2, it is making economic sense. And I'm so thrilled
Yeah.
that, like, yeah, that despite the biggest headwinds you can imagine, we're still making headway.
Yeah. Um, I'm a customer. The first bag I actually got was a hand me down from my mother in law, which is hilarious. But I am not a
Really?
photographer. Yeah.
Huh?
She's a photographer. I think for her as well, I'm 6'3", she might be 5'2". There was like whatever it was, the dimension wasn't perfect for her. And I like literally grabbed it. I was like, mine, I'll take this, which is so funny. I think she got a different product, obviously. But I'm not a photographer. Much, my kids would disagree
Mhm.
because I have 15,000 photos of them. Um, so I'm not that like geek nor photographer, but you've also like expanded your but it's an incredible bag, right? So full stop. You've
Mhm.
expanded your product line, and you're obviously not just talking to the geeks or like the deep photographers anymore. How did you make the decision to expand? Was it like customer led, or was it like, hey, I think we should talk to a different audience? Or are there some through lines with the audience that you're talking to as you've kind of grown the business?
Well, there's always through lines, but I suppose what's kind of funny is the more I think about it, like I've been really focused on growing the business ever since I started the business, but not how do I say this? Like I didn't know what I was doing was having a growth mindset. It was just always like the what is the next thing that we can do? I guess it's just a function of like, cool, we made this product. Now and it's selling. I got some free time though. What next? Maybe it's just the fact that there's a free time becomes available. We're gonna want to use that on the next most kind of what seems like the next juiciest fruit. And you can define a juicy fruits in lots of ways. It can be, well, what am I interested in as an individual that I want to see in this world? And that's where a lot of peak design products have actually come from. But you could also kind of chase back sort of the chain of custody all the way from I'll give it to you real quick actually, like how we kind of have gotten here. Capture camera clip, carry your camera without a strap. Then we launched leash and cuff, which are straps. And it's like, well, actually, sometimes it's nice to have a strap, but the problem is pain in the ass to take on and off. So now we got straps. Cool. Bags came about. I said I'd never make a camera bag because there were so many camera bag brands. But then this famous photographer, Trey Ratcliffe, said, hey, you guys are making the coolest camera accessories out there. I want to make a bag with you. I was like, well, if you want to do it, maybe we'll make a bag together. And right then and there, though, I wanted it to be a bag that everyone could carry, right? The everyday messenger bag was a bag that even if you weren't a photographer, you could carry it. And I think the reason that I did that was because I was the type of photographer who, like, it's not my main thing. I want the bag to be able to carry the camera, but I also want it to be able to just be my bag, moves the everyday messenger. And so that whole thing of it, we have actually a incredible series of trademarks. We own the trademark on everyday messenger, everyday backpack. I think that we're really deeply responsible for helping to create the terms everyday everyday bag. I mean, we still have the ability to push people off of the term everyday backpack because they're like, holy shit, that's trademarked? Yeah, it's trademarked because no one else was talking about that in 2016 when we came out with it. So there was always that focus on really, I guess, fulfilling my own needs. But I am general human well before I am a photographer. And so and that's true for the people who work at Peak Design as well. So I think for that reason, we've always had this like much broader mindset.
Mm,
You think of Patagonia, you think of Black Diamond, right? Like they start with this one like piece of like real technical prowess. And from there, like you have the permission to expand.
mm,
What we don't want to do, though, Aaron, is ever lose the respect of that photographer, that geek
mm,
who's like deeply into it and deeply appreciates what we're
mhm,
doing here in the first place. And a good 20 to 25% of our design is still focused on like really, really highly functional utilitarian camera accessories.
mm. That's cool. I mean, even the bag I have, it's like there's clearly a lot of things that are specifically for that photographer, and it doesn't detract from the bag in any way, shape, or form. So I follow how
Yep.
you're presenting it.
Yep.
I wanna talk a little bit about your journey as a founder or CEO operator and how that's changed. And maybe I can start with a little bit of you kinda mentioned the growth mindset, right? And we were talking about, okay,
Hmm.
we're gonna explore how Peak is gonna grow. How do you think you've had to grow as a leader as the company has expanded? And then I'm also curious, like, what do you think is next for you? Like, what do you wanna level up or explore or, deepen your focus on next?
Damn, that's a big question. And
And
I'll
what would
try
your
to
team
because
say? And why don't they like you? No, okay.
oh man, the simplest way I can answer this very big question that you're asking is that the first 14 years of peak design I define as the intuition era. Not only
Mm,
me, but everyone, we're shooting from our hips. We're feeling our way around. And it is like decisions are made based upon uh at least to that point proven to be decently solid intuition. And the result of that is having a profitable company every year.
mm,
And then on June 28th of 2024, I sit down for our Q1 financial review. It's 2 days before the end of Q2, by the way, so this is probably good signal that we have some problems here. And it says, "Well, Pete, we're on track to lose $1 million." And I was like, "Oh, what? Oh no! Oh no! How did that? What?" It's just like it's absolutely smacked me.
mm,
And Aaron, man, I've like forgiven myself for getting to that point, and I've now come to understand how we got there. But that was
mm,
my dad told me doesn't know a lot about business. He's a firefighter, but he told me one thing, like, "Hey kid, in this life, my one piece of advice is just live beneath your means." And when I
mm,
saw that we were heading for a loss, I so ashamed because I hadn't gone into that intentionally, right? We had been doing a ton of headcount building. We'd been, growing the team. We had
mhm,
taken what were salaries that were just kind of by the hip, and we had put in a compensation framework that ended up pushing everybody's salaries significantly further north. We were building a new headquarters, and we built an LA store, and it was just like all of this stuff mounted up to a negative on the P&L. And so it has been the last 2 years of peak design has been a transition to what we call the numbers era. We had the intuition era, now we have the numbers era. And we are using data to actually inform our decisions. And like this is hard won, right? This is a lengthy transition. I still am finding like, uncovering stones that are even like this last week. I just just like embarrassing that what you'll find when you uncover that stone sometimes. And it's just like crawling with roly polies and bugs when I thought I had like a nice pristine thing under here. And so the reason why we've kind of encountered that stage so late in the business, I think is also something that makes peak design really unique in that we don't have a board. We don't have any investors. We don't have people who have come in and worked at other companies and said, this is how we do things. We've been kind of making it up as we go for a long time. Of course, that's the same for every business in a lot of ways, but usually there are some gray hairs in the room a lot earlier, which, of course, in hindsight now, I probably wish that I'd had, but I try not to spend too much time beating myself up because at the end of the day, like, here we are. I still own the whole company. I haven't had to go out there to the market and sell off a chunk of it to, keep things going. And we're the biggest, certainly from a revenue standpoint, the largest we've ever been. So and we get to, like the analogy, right, is like we kind of scraped the belly of the plane against the ground, but we're pulling up and the trajectory is really solid. And like I just know that for the next 5 to 7 years, this is all about just tightening the operations of this business and returning from, what is now maybe positive 3.5, maybe positive 5 EBITDA margin. And I need to push that thing up to 12 to 16% to truly be a healthy business. But that's going to take years, and that's okay.
There's so much
Yeah.
there. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing, especially the like
Sure.
extremely hard part where you had that realization. As a quick aside, I love that advice from your dad. One of my favorite books
Hmm.
is called The Psychology of Money, and it has like some other tips about how to think through like, hey, look, some people tell you there's a good investment here, but if your comfort zone is paying down the house and sitting on treasuries and you don't care about upside because you have enough, figure out what enough is
Hmm.
for you. And so anyway, that's like very much I love the sentiment.
Amen.
I I want to talk about the numbers era because again, like
Yeah.
the people who are listening are like operators, some exceptional, some like me who are not very good operators when I was running a brand and everybody in the middle. Um, I think the first question I have is like, are you are you enjoying the numbers era? Is this like going back to the growth
Yeah.
mindset, like this is a challenge. You're obviously doing something that is like not your intuition. Is this like a fun challenge or is it like type one fun or type two fun? Right? Is it like, hey, this is cool every day? Or is it like, holy shit, this is really painful, but I'm like really looking forward. Like I can reflect each month on the growth we have, not
Hmm.
like the revenue growth, but the like performance growth.
It is fun, it's heavy,
Mm,
but I'm not overwhelmed.
mm.
I'm not depressed. I'm not anxious. I respect the challenge and I'm like loving the learning that is happening.
Mm.
That's how I describe it.
Obviously, to do something like this at a company of your scale, this is not Peter makes a decision and things just start working differently, right? And you've kind of
Mhm.
commented, right? It's been a couple years in this journey and you're expecting it to be many, many, many more
Mhm.
years. Any tips about how to bring an organization from an intuition through, like, if you could speed up that transition, like, what do you know now about bringing the team into the numbers era that actually a year ago I could have done this and gotten alignment better, or hey, having public dashboards is useful, trying to get more into the tactics about bringing the whole.
Yeah. I would say the key is finance and the finance team. My CFO was very focused on operations, like just getting product ordered for a long time. Like there, I would say do the work early to get a great monthly close. Like, study the importance of a monthly close meeting. This has been the one tool that is like the senior people are in a room together and we are understanding our own business from a numbers standpoint. And also, I'd say figure out contribution margin. Okay. That is what is, I mean, obviously every business is different. Some businesses have one product. And so like contribution from that product, but we have 900 SKUs out there. We did not know what is making us money and what is not making us money until earlier this year. I mean, we knew vaguely, but we now know so much more precisely. So I would say that like it really starts with accounting actually. And I just like, I would create proper resource around those business functions earlier than we did. Definitely. It was like the rule for the longest time was do things that make sense, don't do things that don't make sense, and we'll count the nickels halfway through the next year. We know there's enough to go around.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like if you, this is not me putting words in your mouth, but how like I could see the counter argument about moving into a
Mm.
completely new era. is part of the
Hmm.
intuition was sometimes you're making that investment that you're obviously more right than wrong in your career peak of choosing an investment that is going to pay off, even if there may not be the financial model to prove it. How do you maintain that balance of still being innovative and still being able to be like, hey guys, we're going to place bets that we know like we can't really justify today, but are worth it? Or is it actually, no, 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 we've completely moved away from that?
Oh, we have not moved away from that. Definitely not. I think that there are lightweight ways to put that intuition into a numerical format. And
Mm,
we call it the the juice to squeeze machine is what we call it, or the ROI calculator, right? And it's pretty easy to pit your assumptions up against you know what comes out of there. I mean, I guess it's, I say that now, right? But
mm,
if you would have asked me in 2016, 5 years into the business, when we started really working on our tripod, to say how big is our tripod going to be? I guess we had a tripod Kickstarter in 2019 that sold $12.1 million worth of tripods. It was one of the biggest Kickstarters in the history of Kickstarter. And I will say, like, because we had sold $5 million worth of our first bag and $6.2 million worth of our backpack. And I guess what I was convinced of was that, one, the tripod's more expensive, and two, the level of innovation is greater than relative to the products that they're in. And, my prediction for that campaign was a $10 million campaign. So we did do that, work. And maybe, yeah, I don't know. It's just like actually it's really the decisions more in the call it 21 to
mm,
2025 area, where
mm,
which are the ones where I couldn't hold it in my head anymore.
mm.
Like, I could hold tripod in my head. I'm like, I know I got Robbie J working on this. I know he makes 180K a year. There's a couple other people, and like, I know what our rough gross margins are going to be. It's like I just didn't
Yeah.
need to really put it on paper. But man, when we started talking about, like, let's see what it looks like when we do colors,
Mm,
like, colors are a dangerous game,
mhm,
and you don't even know why they're dangerous, right?
mhm,
It doesn't like it. This is where it just begins to break down. Your intuition no longer serves you. I promise.
mm.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask,
Mm.
how do you think about customer journey these days, given like how many new channels, like you mentioned TikTok or like AEO and like customer searching? How are you thinking about like, is the customer experience changing? And then after that, I want to dive in a little bit into like, how do you think about finding points of leverage for your team, like AI, tooling, technology? Like, do you think about this in
Yeah.
terms of whatnot? So first, let's talk about the customer journey. If you have any thoughts about customer expectations changing.
Well, for one thing, I'm really thinking about customer journey much more deeply than I ever have before. Certainly other people on my team, founders can come into a business and hold a certain expertise, actually usually that's the case, right? And I've always been a product focused CEO. And it's like, figure out the right product. Now I'd say product and the creative side of marketing, not the analytical side of marketing, but the creative side. I've always really enjoyed telling the story, of how we make products. But the analytics, it's kind of like, well, shit, Kickstarter solved that for me in the early days. And then as far as wholesale, the way that came about is people came to me, and then, we built up a team to kind of service that. So it's like, well, put it in camera stores, and whoever asks will buy it. And then a website, sure, sounds like a good idea. Paid advertising, yeah, I've heard of it. Let's do it. But oh my God, I'm just like, I'm humbled by the amount of, like, you could have that same approach toward product that I have toward marketing analytics and
Mhm,
have a really successful company. Right?
mm,
Like, if I was laser focused on that, I could have somewhat vanilla products and potentially still have a great brand. Again, obviously, people on my team have been studying this really hard, and
mm,
I think doing a really good job of fulfilling that customer journey. And I have been kind of delighted to get some outside opinions on, hey, how do we do these things? How do we score in terms
Mm.
of email campaign, email marketing, and our paid performance, and our PR strategy? Like, how are we actually doing? And thank God, and this isn't luck, obviously. This is the really hard work of a really talented team. I've been told we kick ass at these things. You actually said what was it that we're like on in the top performance of? Was it email or
Oh yeah.
what?
So we do free audits for hundreds and hundreds of Clivio brands, and we try to help them understand. Look,
Yeah.
are you emailing the right people or not? We don't help you with the content, but
Yep.
people use like crazy rules of thumb, and it's just like for most of our brands, there are hundreds of millions of data points you could analyze to figure out should I email Peter today or not. Getting that right is
Yep.
very very valuable. Your team, what we do is we stack rank people on a daily basis, and then we can look and be like, okay, the top tier, the second tier, the third tier, whatever we call it, highly engaged, moderately, slightly. Your team has one of the highest click rates for the most engaged people that we've seen,
Yes.
which is a combination of like good segmentation, obviously at the core, great product, great storytelling, etc. My recommendation is you should actually send more content. Like you have people who deeply want to hear from you because
Man.
like people are voting with their like people vote with their click. It sounds dumb, but it's like
Mm,
some people, I'm not talking about everybody. Some people will take 8 emails a week from a brand. Some people don't want one for the next 6 months. Right. And so like
mhm.
there is no customer. But yeah, you look, I mean, again, I knew this from the outside walking in. I was like, well, obviously this is like a wildly passionate audience. And so yeah, your team has just done a great job. Because you like literally
Man.
asked me, you asked me, right? Hey, should
Yeah.
we work with you? I was like, honestly, your team's already doing a good job, and like at some point maybe, but we're going to be like an accelerant, but it's not. Most of the brands we're looking at just like don't have that dialed in.
Wow. I mean, that is like that's so cool to hear. I
Yeah.
and like it checks out. My marketing team, like Adam Saraceno was my first hire. He was my college buddy. We bartended at the same place. He's one of the funniest human beings I've ever
Mhm.
known. And he's
Uh,
also just locked in and he's so smart.
yeah.
And like, he's just, I cannot say enough awesome things about Adam Saraceno.
That's
And
right.
then we had this plucky graphic designer named Lawrence Lander, brimming with confidence, come join our team in 2015. We actually I remember his cover letter for why we
Mm.
should hire him. And Art, my lead designer, who was also doing graphic design at the time, was like, "This guy looks too good for us. We shouldn't interview him because he's clearly overqualified for the job." And obviously, we did interview him, and man, he's
I love it.
like Lawrence now, kind of supplanted Adam as head of marketing because Adam is really really creatively focused. Lawrence is super
Mm.
creative as well,
Mm.
but Adam doesn't want all the rest that comes with people leadership and dealing
Mm.
with the executive team. Unfortunately, like in this numbers era, like the meetings are long and they're kind of a slog. Everybody loves each other, but it's like we're wrestling with these problems that like we understand the problem, but the solution is just like, cool, that's 18 months away after, you know, a 1,000-step process. And Adam's like, "Can I just go write some funny shit?
Mm.
I just
Yeah.
please." So, you
I love
gotta
that.
like that part of the magic though is figuring out where people's strengths align and getting them set up with a position within the company where it's natural,
Mm.
where like there's a human out there who wants to do every single job that there is. It might be shoveling shit to me, but to someone
Yeah.
else, they're like, no, no, no. I really like figuring out warehouse operations.
Before I let you go, I actually was curious because
Yeah.
one of the things that was very clear to me, again, knowing Annie, knowing you, even the examples you've given here, is you have pretty, it seems like a pretty strong tenured group. Like people stick around, right? So a lot of
Yeah.
times it's like, I've got this hot brand that really grew and yeah, it's fun, but like I could go take that and go to a smaller brand and have a title. Obviously, there are different choices, right? And I know people leave and not everybody's there forever, but running a brand to me in particular seems like a hard place to retain people for a long time. Do you have any advice or any reflections about the things that you, and again, not just you, but like as a culture, you guys have been able to do that has really helped keep people around?
So I've done a lot of reflecting on this, and Jen, our head of people. Well, this is going to sound like a real horn toot now that I thought of what her answer was.
What?
uh,
Yeah.
but she was just like, I was kind of lamenting. I was like, Jen, do people just stick around because I pay too much? And she said, no, Pete. They stick around because they know you're actually a great person and that I actually really wish well for my employees and I actually
Mm,
really care about them and I fight hard to keep the band together and
mm.
that's where I put my energy is just like the bear hug that I put around this organization. Dude, I want to read that. I got a text from Karen from accounting last night that I can't read it verbatim, because my phone's doing the thing up there, but she was like, "Hey, Pete, I'm just filling." We just had push week, so everybody from the company. That's another thing that I've allowed to happen was I allowed people move away from San Francisco and
Mm,
still work for the company. So we were doing the
mm.
remote thing early. If that wasn't my policy, obviously people would have left because they have to do what's best for their family first. But Karen, she never was down here. She met up in Tahoe because she was friends with my CFO and his wife Molly, who also works for Peak Design. But she just dropped the nicest note, having come down for Push Week and just enjoyed the camaraderie and she just said how much she friggin' loves it here, that a bad day here is better than any day she's had at any other company, and she just loves the people, and people just wanna work there here for their whole freaking career, and I feel a tremendous responsibility and desire to, like this is why I wanna focus on profitability because I wanna keep the band together, that's why.
I love it. A great way to wrap. I want to create space at the end. If there's any other tips or thoughts or anything else you want to share, you've already shared so much, so no pressure there. And then the last piece is where can folks find Peak? Is there anything that, like any shout out that you want to do for the brand?
Yeah, I think you asked a lot of great questions, Aaron. And really enjoyable to talk to you. I also like appreciated the name of the podcast or the subtitle of the podcast, and there's a wisdom that is acquired when our hairs start to turn gray, and we've been doing this shit long enough. And I just
Krisha,
like,
Krisha, who runs our podcast, and Adrian, our CMO, hate it. But the original name was I'm old enough to know whom in e-commerce to talk to, or something like that. And so I put this in the email because I still like the name, and this is my screw you guys. And but I don't know if
yep.
anybody else knows that's the subtitle.
I think it's a terrible name for all the reasons that Chris, says that it is. I totally trust her, but
Yes,
it kind of got me and because it honored me. I appreciated it. Somehow, I'm fortunate enough to be one of those people who fits that definition for you. So
I like it.
stoked to be on that. But great questions, Aaron. Super fun to run into you in person and turn this around. People can find Peak Design on I think Instagram is the kind of the most
Mm,
fun place where we show up.
mm.
Obviously, our website, peakdesign.com, is kind of the business end of things, but you know, we're around.
I love it. I think
We're
my
around.
last word of advice to any brand operator is look at Peter's hair and look at mine. And that is the difference between running a brand profitably and running a brand into the ground. So if nothing else, you will look younger and healthier and stronger. And all right, man. Thank you. I really appreciate your time. This was truly wonderful.
Likewise, Aaron. See you around, buddy.
I'm Aaron Schwartz, co-founder of Orita AI, where we help hundreds of brands like Spanx, Faraday, and Salt and Stone get the absolute most out of their customer lists. Learn more at Orita.ai or check out my interviews with the founders of Klaviyo, Birdies, Caraway, and plenty more wherever you get your podcasts.